Welcome, future doctors, to another episode of the Future Minority Doctor podcast with Dr. Sulma
and Marina, where we bring you conversations to empower and inspire you to contribute to your community and the world by becoming a doctor.
Hello, future doctors. It's Dr. Marina and Dr. Sulma again. I'm recording this podcast for you. And the reason we decided to record this specific episode is because we've been talking to a couple of students and they're really questioning themselves about whether they're really cut out for medicine and just having a lot of self-doubt whether this is the path for them. And I will specifically give you two examples that I can think of. And this is very recently. These are two pre-medical students, but both of them, of course, they applied, got into the sciences as their undergrad. It's their first year. They're like, yes, I'm going to be a doctor. This is my path. This is what I'm going to do. They planned out what their 4 years will look like already. Haven't even started, but they planned out those 4 years. So they're like, I got my game plan. I'm going to do this, this, this. And they're like, all right. And then I'll graduate by this year. And then I'll start medical school. So this is their objective, their vision, where they're going in. And of course, as I always tell all these students that are going to start, your first semester or quarter is going to be really hard. It's very different than high school. It's going to make you question yourself. Just be okay if everything doesn't come out perfect, just like it did in high school. Oh, no, I know that. I'll be okay. I'll be all right. I got it. Then that first quarter, that first semester ends. Then I get the call. I don't know. I'm starting to question this thing about being a doctor. I don't know if I'm cut out for it. I didn't do as well as I thought I was going to do. I got a C or a D in my first chemistry class. I failed my chemistry class. Chemistry tends to be one of those tough courses that first year that really makes people become very, very deflated about the idea of becoming a doctor. So again, everything that I talked to them about before starting, it was like when in, when you're in, out. And now they're like, oh, shoot, here we go. And this is the point where we lose a lot of students, specifically first generation minority students in medicine.
Yeah.
Right? This is where we see that the drop off. And it's because of this bump, because of this obstacle, because of this failed course. And then they totally rearrange their life. And we want to tell you not to do that because we expected that bump. So it's really important when you go in, expect you're going to struggle. It's going to be hard. You're not going to get straight A's. If you do, kudos to you. But most of us don't get straight A's as well. And it's just relearning, what did we do wrong? Let me look back and say, oh, maybe I approached this wrong. Because usually it's not really that you don't have the intellect to make it. It's just your study style or the way that the material that's presented is different. And you have to learn that style. So I know I went through it. I don't know, Dr. Marina, I'm sure you went through it and you've had these examples as well, if you want to share.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my first year of college, it was both wonderful and a big mess. Like, because it's so exciting to be starting and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm like an adult for the first time in my life. And often you get to live on your own, although not always. And you're introduced to this whole new world of college and college life. And I loved a lot of the classes I took. I loved so many of the people that I was meeting and the opportunities that college opened up to me. But man, my first chemistry class, like I bombed it. In fact, I was doing so badly that I decided to withdraw from my first chemistry class because I was like, I don't want to end up with a D or an F. And so I ended up with like a W on my transcript as a withdrawal. And then even the next time I took it, I waited until my sophomore, I think it was my sophomore year, or maybe the end of my freshman year, I decided to retake it. And I ended up with like a C. And it was very demoralizing. It was deflating because here I was with all of my hopes and dreams of becoming a doctor. And actually, I was a little bit crazy in college because maybe I still am a little bit crazy because I had this plan, this like grandiose plan to double major in biology and electrical engineering. And I am someone who loves to like make graphs and calendars and things like that. So I had planned out my whole 4-year schedule, kind of like you
Yep.
said earlier. And I had it color coded based on like this major and this major's requirements and like how I was going to cram in like 4 or 5 courses every quarter in order to fulfill all the requirements. And oh my gosh, like after that first year, I was like, I failed so horribly in like chemistry and in my first electrical engineering class. It was like, now I have to retake it. And then I was starting to plan, okay, now that I have to retake this courses, I have to cram in even more stuff. And the calendar was just looking so awful and so chaotic. And it was finally my sophomore year that I decided I have to be realistic about the things that I can and can't do. And I'm already challenging myself a lot by being here and by majoring in biology, which was actually quite a challenging major where I went. And so I was like, okay, I don't have to feel like a failure if I have to retake classes or if I have to just major in one thing. It's okay. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still going to get to my goal of becoming a doctor. But I think it's really hard when you have those experiences of failure or setbacks or rejection. It's really hard to kind of pick yourself up and dust yourself off and keep going. And we sometimes have to take a moment and take some time to just cry it out or just let the emotions out in whatever way we need to let them out. And then be like, okay, I've given myself time to process the difficulty of what's happened and the failure. But just because I failed this once, it does not mean that I am not capable of growing and learning and getting better because that's life. Life is a process of failing and trying and getting better and figuring out what works for us. So I
Yeah.
definitely experienced failure in my first year. Tell me, I mean, I could tell you way more about it.
Yeah, so the student that I referenced to earlier had this like you said, this grandiose scheme of how the next 4 years of
Yeah.
his life was going to be like. But again, after that first, second quarter, was starting to rethink what is actually my
Hmm.
path? What am I doing? A lot of questioning, self-reflecting, but more discouraging themselves because now this plan that they initially thought was supposed to go as is, it's not,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So I had to really just tell the student, you need to step back. Like, it never works out the way you initially think. Number one. Number two, this is hard. You need to look at your first or second quarter as you're learning, like learning quarters, learning semester, because you're trying to figure things out. And there's more than one way to get to medical school. Like a lot of students nowadays, they actually take gap years. They'll take like a year or two off. So then that way they give themselves 4 to 5 years to just really focus on getting that GPA because the GPA is important. And then
Uh-huh.
after that, then they focus on the MCAT, right? So just really being flexible to not having, being so strict and having a certain amount of time that you need to complete things just really helps relieve your stress level and knowing that there's more than one way to get there. I
Hmm.
am one of them. The way I went at it completely different than Dr. Marina, right? I
Hmm.
did fall out. I did end up falling into one of those students who said I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't do well, and then I actually did switch my major. I ended up majoring in psychology and Spanish literature just because I had given up on the thought that I was capable because I didn't do so well in some of my classes. It was my initial calculus class I took my first
Uh-huh.
quarter. And so that's what I did. But of course, luckily along the way, I met people who encouraged me, made me rethink it. And so I stayed with that major of psychology and Spanish literature. And it wasn't until after I graduated. So I took about 2, 3 years to do my pre-med. So I kind of did things backwards and it
Hmm.
worked out. Right. And then now
Yeah.
that I can reflect and look back, I wouldn't have done it any different. Like, I wouldn't have
Hmm.
rushed that initial plan that you have. I have to be done in 4 years and apply to medical school, so that way I am what would it be, like 26, 28 by the time I started applying medical school. You
Hmm.
set these, like, age limits and this number that you have to do, but
Yeah.
the reality is It's not like that. It usually doesn't work that way. And
Mm-hmm.
if you fall somewhere, you pick yourself right back up and learn from it because you're going to
Mm-hmm.
fall multiple amount of times. I failed. I didn't do well. I wasn't as smart enough as Dr. Marina to withdraw, so it wouldn't affect my GPA. God, I wish I would have done that with certain classes, but
Uh-huh.
you learn, and I was still able to make it. So again, we
Mm-hmm.
always talk about having grace for yourself, but really, really reach out to mentors, reach out to us to ask us questions. Another issue that we see with some students before they come across us is they get onto the internet and they go to all these
Oh
little
yeah.
student networks, and then, oh, and they have a mental image of what a student needs to have to get to medical school. And they think that's it. Like, that is it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no around it, right? And it's not till they talk to us and then we start talking to them, they're like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, no, it's not a one size fits all kind of deal.
Yeah,
So that's so important. I know
exactly.
you've had some issues with some
Mm-hmm.
students too, where we're like,
Uh-huh.
from those websites.
Yes, because you go on Reddit or this site called Student Doctor Network, or just you read on Instagram posts and things, and the people who are posting on those groups, they're the ones who like to show off. They're like, oh, I got a 525 MCAT and like a 3.8 GPA, and I have 10 interviews from medical school and blah, blah, blah. And I have these research publications. And they're the ones who are like, people just like to show off online. I don't know why. and so all these other students are reading those posts and thinking, oh my God, like I'm nowhere near that. I'm never going to get in. I'm such a failure compared to the. So all of these online groups, what they do is that they encourage comparison and
Mhm.
unhealthy comparison most of the time. So please, please, I mean, it's okay to look some stuff up online, but just be very careful, very judicious about what sources you're trusting, right? And be aware that a lot of the stuff you read online is not going to be accurate because it's by people who are representing just their own experience, and all of the other people who have different experiences that maybe are not as wonderful, or maybe they're a little more humble about them, they're not the ones posting. And so you get a very skewed perspective from online threads like on Reddit or on Student Doctor Network. So just be aware. And we've had wonderful success stories. Listen to our podcast of some of the students who have gone through our program. And even though they didn't have a stellar MCAT, they had wonderful life experiences, and we helped them to tell their story through their application. And they had a lot of volunteer experiences, and they showed that they cared about their community and they did their best, and they got into med school. So, so just be aware that we always say this. I always say this. There are as many paths to becoming a physician as there are physicians. And also, I will add one more thing. So, we mentioned that it's okay to like struggle during your first year.
Mhm.
Well, I actually struggled during my first year and during my second year of college. And that was really hard because I kind of felt like, okay, by my second year, I should have figured it out. I'm going to have my study skills improved. And then all of a sudden, things are going to get a lot easier. Well, my school was a little unique that they didn't let you take the core biology classes until your second year. And so it was my second year that I was taking my core courses in biochemistry and molecular biology and genetics and plant biology and all that stuff that's required, like the core curriculum for biology majors at my school. And those really kicked my butt. I mean, I actually got D's and F's in those three courses because you had to take this, like what they call the bio core in this series of three courses each quarter. And at the end of the year, I was like even more demoralized because I was doing okay in my other classes. I was actually really great at like the humanities courses and history and English and all that stuff. But man, those science courses just kicked my butt. And part of the problem was that, I mean, I was at an elite institution. I was at Stanford, and it was this huge lecture hall with like 200 or 300 people all competing, all of these gunner pre-meds competing for those grades. And first of all, the high school that I went to was pretty under-resourced, and so I had never really taken a real biology course. I did not have AP biology. The biology course I took in high school was kind of a joke, like and so I was going in way unprepared compared to a lot of my classmates, right? And so during that, I got pretty depressed and all this stuff during college, partly because the academics were so difficult. But there was always that voice inside me that was like, hey, This is a learning process. And we have a whole episode on something called growth mindset. And I think that's actually what helped me, was that I was like, okay, just because I failed, it doesn't mean that I can't get better, right? Like, I think sometimes it's really hard for people who have what's called a fixed mindset. If you grew up always being praised, like, oh, you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so good at this, you're so good at science, you're just like the smart kid in your family. Then you go into college, and as soon as you fail something, it challenges your ego, it challenges your identity and your self concept. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, I failed something. That means I must not be smart. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. It's a really hard space to navigate because your whole self concept is being challenged, right? And so, what do? You have a choice. You can either say, I'm either smart or I'm dumb. And if I failed this class, that means I'm dumb. So I'm going to not try, and I'm going to go try something that's easier for me so that I can continue to be the smart person, right? Or you can say, actually, I need to shift my mindset. I need to adopt more of a growth mindset and realize that any skill, any ability, any amount of knowledge is not just something we're born with. It's something that we develop, right? And just because I failed, it doesn't mean that I can't continue to work at it and get better. So luckily, I was stubborn enough, even after my sophomore year of college, that I retook all those 3 courses, the core courses, and it was awful because all of my other classmates that were majoring in biology, they were already like moving on to the advanced courses, and I had to take more time in order to get there. But it was worth it. And I'm really glad that my younger self persevered enough, because it wasn't just about the grades. It was about proving to myself that I could do hard things, and that I could persevere, and that I could grow, and also adopt that growth mindset. So it's a really long story, but it's not
That's worth
always your first
hearing.
year that you struggle. It can also be your second year or your third year that you struggle. It's not like you just magically overnight become a sophomore and everything is better, right?
Yeah. I think also what plays a part is when you're a first generation student, you don't have access to any physicians that you know, especially if you're the first
Yeah.
doctor in your family, which most of you are. So you create this image of what doctors go through, what they did, what they accomplished. So you think
Hmm.
that, and this is, and I'm saying this because this is what I thought, that every single doctor did excellent throughout
Yeah.
their undergrad. They were able to do excellent on their MCATs and just get into medical school. But it's because of the lack of access that you have to someone, which is why we created this podcast, right? When
Yeah.
you actually speak to many physicians, a lot of them struggled. A lot of them did. A lot of them
Yeah.
failed courses. A lot of them had to retake, I would say more than half had to retake
Uh-huh.
courses and struggled. Regardless, even if they were academically prepared, they still struggled.
Yeah.
So imagine us who come from low resource schools, we're going to
Hmm.
struggle. Like it's expected, right? So, but
Yeah.
the important thing is not to give up. But again, going back, because of the lack of access to doctors to talk to them, to get their story, to ask them questions, I
Hmm.
think that's what also makes us get scared and become even more deflated and change our path away from medicine. So, this
Yeah.
is why we are so transparent in that we
Hmm.
have failed, we have struggled, we have gone through mental health issues, we have cried, you
Hmm.
name it,
Oh
we've been
yeah.
through it. And it just took that persistence, that growth mindset for us to get dust ourselves and then let's keep going. Let don't give up. I know we can do this. So
Hmm.
again, just remembering that there's not one way to do this. And I will tell you, most doctors do not go the traditional route. I will say
Yeah.
nowadays, especially as we're getting older. And if you're on the fence about, hey, I might not graduate the 4 years as I planned, or there's no
Hmm.
way I can study for the MCAT within those 4 years, that's okay. If you need to take a
Yeah.
year to just work and study, personally, I think it's going to be better for you.
Yeah.
It's okay, and that's normal. If you need to take 2 years, I
Uh-huh.
took 4 years off in between. Again, as I mentioned before, I wouldn't have done it any differently. I did so much in those 4 years, and I don't regret
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. The title of this episode is Am I Cut Out for Medicine? And I think what you really need to ask yourself to answer that question for yourself, because you're the only one who can really answer it, right? The question is not, can I do well in my science courses? The question, although eventually you have to do well enough,
Yeah.
right? We have other episodes that talk about that. But the question you need to ask yourself in order to know if you're cut out for medicine is, am I willing to persevere? Am I willing to try and try and try and adopt a growth mindset? I think that, if anything, is the marker of a really, truly fantastic physician, is someone who truly has a growth mindset and is willing to try and get better and get better and get better and acknowledge that they don't know everything, but they're willing to recognize their weaknesses and do what it takes to improve upon them, right? None of us, no physician on earth currently knows everything and can do everything, right? We get to the point as physicians that we are very good at what we do, and we know what we know and we know what we don't know, and we're able to practice responsibly because we know the difference between what we're comfortable with and we're not, right? And we are able to recognize when there's a deficit in knowledge and then go seek out what we need to fill that gap. But really, the marker, in my opinion, of someone who becomes a fantastic physician has to do so much more with perseverance and with growth mindset and self-compassion as well, because you have
Mhm.
to be compassionate toward yourself in order to say, hey, I failed, but I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to keep getting better, right? And it's okay. I don't have to feel like I'm a total failure. I can just keep growing and keep learning. So that's my opinion. Ask yourself those questions. Am I willing to persevere? Am I willing to have compassion on myself as I go through this very difficult process of learning and growing and developing as a person and as a student? And am I willing to do it over a long period of time, right? Because this path to being a physician is not a short one. It actually takes quite a while. So you have to ask yourself if you're really in it for the long run.
Yeah, I agree. And try not to compare yourself with others. I think that's a huge thing too. I know it's hard when you're an undergrad, I remember, but really you're on your own race. You are in your own race, and then that's it.
Oh,
Your race is going to look different like everybody else's, and that's okay. And reach
yes.
out to us. Reach out to someone that you feel comfortable with that can give you honest feedback as well. Don't go to Dr. Google
I know. Be
or all these
careful.
others, reach out to us, ask us, and we can tell you. We can put you in touch with people who might be relatable to whatever it is that you're going through as well.
Mhm.
If you're close to applying to medical school, consider look at our application coaching program. We can definitely help you. We've had very good success rates with our students, and a lot of those students didn't go through the traditional path. There's so
Absolutely.
much there. I would say none of them, right? Probably from our cohorts. I don't know if any of them went to the
Yeah, I
traditional.
would say that everybody has had at least one gap year. Hmm.
Yeah, at least one gap year and worked in different fields. They come from different backgrounds, different experiences. I mean,
Yep.
it's just nobody fits that little box that these websites tell you to look like. Okay?
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah. So remember, if you fail a class or two or a couple, it does not mean that you cannot be a physician. Please don't fall for that trap, right? These like courses like chemistry and biochemistry and physics are known as weeder courses for a reason because they weed people out. But please, please don't let those grades define you. As long as you're willing to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, refine your study strategies, ask for help, and get better, you can get where you want to go. And please listen to all our past episodes. We have so many episodes on like developing study skills and improving your memory and what it takes to succeed in courses like OChem and physics. So please utilize all the resources that are there because we've put a lot of effort into making them just for you. And we are very transparent about our own struggles and our own stories. And hopefully it'll help to keep you motivated even in those rough spots.
Yeah. And I just want to add one more thing. If you already applied to medical school and you didn't get in, don't give up. That's another one. Sometimes with that first time, you
Yes,
guys want to give up. There's so many students that don't get in the first time around. So again, that would be another key
mm,
point.
definitely. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening and sending you all wonderful good wishes.
Yes. Peace and love, everyone.